Every day, millions of men go to work questioning their purpose and how to leverage their gifts for the advancement of God's kingdom. Join us as we hear stories from other men just like you and me who have discovered the answer and are willing to share some wisdom they've learned along the way. Gathering wisdom is like dropping pennies in a jar. Over time, our jars fill up and overflow into the lives of others. Welcome to The Drop.
Welcome to The Drop. My name is Michael Pick, and today I have Greg Enloe.
Hey, good to see you, Mike, and everybody out there in the YouTube world.
Hey, thanks for coming today, Greg. I appreciate it. So let's start off with something easy. Where do you live?
All right. I'm from Hanford, California, born and raised there. From Hanford, I lived in Irvine. I was lucky enough to play professional water polo in Spain, Greece, Slovenia, Greece, Australia. Spent quite a few months in Zimbabwe. Wife is from Greece, and Hanford's my hometown, but I feel like you can find me almost anywhere.
Okay, as your dad calls you, Gregarious Greg.
Gregarious Greg.
Yeah. So, well, let's back up a little bit before we get to all that water polo stuff. So, Hanford is in the valley. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And what's Hanford like?
It's exactly what you'd think of a place between Fresno and Bakersfield.
Okay.
I would always joke that it had more cows than people, but it's a smaller farm town, smaller for California, bigger for other places. But it was a little bit slower when I grew up. It was really nice, good place to live.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you still call that home?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So you're married?
I am married.
And how long you been married?
Been married for just over 3 years now.
Okay. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been one of the best things that happened to me in my life. Probably the best thing that happened to me in my life.
That's great. So let's talk about just that a little bit. Let's talk about your wife, because I know she's from Greece.
Yep.
How did you meet her?
Honestly, through the grace of God. We'll probably tangent backwards a little bit, but to answer your question directly, I had signed with the team in Greece. I was playing for Ethnikos Piraeus, and relatively quickly it was obvious that the club wasn't going to be able to hold up their side of the contract. So I was only in Athens for 1 month, and then from there I ended up moving to Slovenia. But in that 1 month, I had walked to Papastratio, which is the pool for Ethnikos, as well as Olympiakos, and the home pool for the Greek national team. I was practicing with Olympiakos in the morning and my team in the evening. Showed up on a Wednesday, got to the pool, looked around. The men weren't there. On the far side of the pool, I saw the Greek national team coach and walked over to him. I said, "Halaris, where are the men?" He said, "Oh, they didn't tell you. They don't have practice today." And I was like, "Oh, man, it's a 2-mile walk back to home." And he saw the look in my face, and he's just like, "But we need an extra person. Do you want to practice with us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, 100%. So I jumped in the water, and on the way at the end of practice, I just took a real long time to, change. And one of the girls came up and said, "Hey, we're going to go to coffee. Would you like to go?" I was honestly just waiting for a ride because I didn't want to walk 2 miles back. And, as we walked in the coffee shop, I saw her and I was like, I want to talk to her. And I sat down next to her, and we were friends for like 6 years before anything, ever blossomed, and just long friendship that slowly turned into something more. So it's really nice.
That's great. So what looked like a negative without your team being there turned into a positive?
Yeah. So the Tuesday before was the last time I trained with the men, and I was with the women from there on out.
Okay. All right. So there's a lot in between from growing up in Hanford to becoming an actual water polo player.
Yeah.
So share a little about your childhood, some of the meaningful events.
Oh, yeah. And I'll just kind of delve in, because you had said earlier that this is predominantly for like the younger men, for that like adolescent youth age. And, I've given a lot of talks. I've been blessed with an opportunity to interact with a lot of different high school boys and girls by giving clinics throughout the country and throughout the world. And my childhood, I think, is probably the most important thing in all of it. I grew up in a broken home. My mother and my father, both phenomenal people individually, but get them together, like fire and gasoline, it just was never really good. And that was something that I had struggled with for a really long time. 1 week with my dad, 1 week with my mom, and both of them had different views on the way that you should be leading life. And that is also probably one of the strongest aspects of my childhood as well, was just that continual conflict, because I'd watched the way that my mom lived and I watched the way that my dad lived, and there were definitely pros and cons in both of them, and the ability to have to like merge them together to create, who I am today was by far the most important thing. And in that conflict is where I was really able to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And I guess the story that I try to share the most is just, they divorced when I was 3 years old, and they did not stop fighting until probably 3 months before my mom died when I was 20. At that point in time, well, I'll regress later, but yeah, it was just like a continual fight between them, and it was really difficult. Like, I'd go to my dad's house and they're like, "You're being your mom's kid," and then I go to my mom's house and "You're being your dad's kid," and having to kind of morph in between what was expected of me at all times was pretty difficult. But what I had learned was they had completely different friend groups as well, and what I had learned was like everyone had something beautiful about them. And it was just a matter of like, was I diverse enough to be able to understand whatever it is that they have to share? And with that, like, I just got this kind of cacophony of friends and interests and the ability to connect with people and love them. And I just look at it, it's like, it's an equal smattering between, the far left and the far right, and like the super spiritual and the maybe not so spiritual, and everything in between. And just like, it was really interesting because there were times where, my mom had pushed my dad in rose bushes. She had hidden fish in his car when she knew he would be gone for a long weekend in the summer heat. Threatened to kill him at one point. It was, she went to jail, possibly go to prison because of this threat, and it was, there was blood on both people's hands at all times. But there was a moment that I always share with everyone. It was roughly third grade. And I had, at that point in time, the biggest homework assignment of my life, which was like, a week of an assignment, right? And I'm in my room on my desk, and I can still like see the stickers that were on my desk, and I'm trying to do my homework. My bedroom door is closed. My mom's bedroom door is closed, and she's screaming about something my dad had said or done. They were split, obviously, but still. And I could hear her through both doors, and I just started to cry. And so I'm doing my homework. I start to cry, and I just like put my pencil down, and I close my eyes, put my head down, and I'm just like, I give up. Like, Doug doesn't have to deal with this. David doesn't have to deal with this. All of my friends, just name them off, comparing myself to other people. And I just put my pencil down and cried, and like, I give up. Why do I have to deal with this? And then this was like my first God moment. Close my eyes, and as I look down, I can see the back of my head as if like the camera was at the ceiling. And then I could see the top of our house, and then I could see our whole property, and then I could see California, and then I could see the world. And the world was spinning way faster than it should have. And then this voice that I had never heard in my life before, it said, "In the end, when it comes time to be judged, they're not going to care why you did or did not. They're only going to care, did you do or did you not?" And with that moment, and the last word was, "The world keeps turning." And then I like opened my eyes, and I'm looking at my pencil, and I just realized like, yeah, at the end of my life, all of these bad things happen. And there's going to be times that you want to quit, and there's going to be times that you want to do things that maybe are hurtful to you and your long-term goals. But in the end of my day, when I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to look back, and I'm going to know for the majority of those decisions, I was the primary decision maker. And I didn't want to let like one thing affect the rest of my life. And I just took a breath, and I looked to the right of my shoulder, and I said, okay. And that one moment picked up my pencil. And from that moment on, I just said, when life gets hard, I need to just make a decision based off of where is it that I want to be at the end of my life, not what's going to make me feel better right now or what's going to solve the problem right now, but always looking forward. And, maybe that applies to older people. Maybe it applies to people my age. Maybe it applies to children. I hope it does to children. When we look at our society and we know that 50% of marriages are going to end in divorce, like, the last thing you want to do is allow one negative thing to impact the rest of your life. Because in the end, like, if we just look at statistics, 50% of the people are going to have to deal with this. So what are you going to do about it? And how I ended up realizing it is every hurdle overcame is a platform of confidence to like boost off of later. And it came down to this like Jerry Tarkanian speech I had heard one time, a long time ago, Tark the Shark, Get on the Towel. He was at UNLV, and I could even be misremembering this, but it was talking about like he brought in people from kind of, rough childhood. And it was like, if you could overcome this, you look back, he's like, what else can I do? And, there's been times in my life where I like, literally, I don't see how this situation could have gotten any more difficult. And then like, I overcame it. I overcame my mom having cancer, overcame my mom and dad having a really bad divorce and all of these things. And luckily enough was relatively successful. And it's, I look forward, I'm like, God, what else am I ready for? And what else will come? And, we cannot guarantee success for sure. Who knows, maybe in 20 years we watch this video and I'm, in a really bad spot and they're like, hey, you did really well there for a while. But it's just that kind of continual effort and that belief in, just always pushing forward. And, as I was driving in today, it's like, yeah, how does that apply? How does that apply to Christianity and faith and religion and all of that? And, before my stepmother came in my life, she's like the most angelic person I've ever met. Like anyone who ever met her, like the description of her in one word is angel. And before that, my mom was literally atheist, and my dad, I wouldn't say he was like a believer. I don't think he had like a Christian faith. And then my stepmom came in, and my stepmom is the leader of the National Day of Prayer in our hometown. And she brought religion into my dad's household. And so there was quite strife when this happened. My mom would be like, don't get thumped on the head by the Bible, like, hold strong. And then she saw me get into the church and go into youth group. And then her tune kind of changed. And she'd say that mainly when she was angry, like she was happy. If I want to go to church, she'd let me go to church. But what she had just said was like, look, in the end, just promise me when you go to college, you're going to do religious studies. Like learn about the other ones. And as long as that's what you do, I really don't mind what you believe in. So it was really nice that she was loving and open and compassionate about that. But with her coming in to my life and then there being this dichotomy, I had to really introspect about like, okay, what is the Bible, right? And like, what if we're wrong? And that's a common question I get when I speak about my religion now. And it's like, all right, let's just say for perhaps it's wrong. What other self-help book has existed for over 2,000 years, right? And I look at it and I just like, if in the end that's the only thing that it is, which I don't believe, I don't think it's that minute. I think that it's even more than that. But let's say it's just that minute. How do we continually push further every day, regardless of whatever is thrown in our life? And it's that you have to have like tenets and backbone and a core ideology that doesn't shift. And in those tenets is where you can have bad things come to you, and you will always be able to rely back onto something that is proven that you believe in, that you go unquestioning. It's ideally subconscious. And I could like delve into like how I try to use that in sports and how sports goes into that and how that goes into work. But in the end, it's just like a matter of systems. And, I had read this article once about like fight or flight and how our brain works. And essentially the metaphor I heard was, our brain, it functions off of the power of a 5-volt battery. And so if that's the only amount of energy you have, and then this goes back into like what I tell the youth is like, you want to already have your answer to a multitude of things, like the, proper preparation prevents poor performance, right? Left out a P there.
You
but
left
that's
out
okay.
the extra P.
Yeah, I did. That's fine.
Yeah.
But it's, when you're not prepared, that's when mistakes happen. And I just look at it as like, for water polo, it's very simple. If the set's open and you have the ball and they're open, give them the ball. Why? Because they have the highest percentage shot in the pool. Like, I don't want to use part of my 5 volts in like thinking, oh, is this the right answer? No, 1 + 1 is 2 almost every time, right? And so we go into it, and like what I try to tell the kids that I'm coaching is like, already know, it comes down to, am I going to practice hanging out with my friends or doing schoolwork? 1 is schoolwork, 2 is sport, 3 is friends. And it's like, it doesn't compromise. Why? Because, well, without the school, you can't get to the sport, right? And then the last one, the friends will always be there. But if we're looking for long-term goals, like, just always know what is your proper priority and then put that time in. And we're all like, I'm not perfect. I'm sure you make mistakes on your level of priority, as we've spoken about off air. But I don't know. That was a really long answer. So sorry about that.
That was great. That was great. I want to ask you something though, because I think it's meaningful. So you were in 3rd grade this night of this tough homework assignment.
Yeah.
How did you know that was God? How had you been introduced prior to that? Was it your stepmom that introduced faith into your life?
I mean, I went to a Catholic like preschool, but that I wouldn't say that was it. I don't know. I just kind of knew. It was a voice I'd never heard. It was a vision I'd never had. It was just completely out of body experience. And I don't know. You could just kind of feel it.
How long did it take you to figure out that moment was such a crossroads for you in your life? Was it instantaneous?
1 second. Like,
so you were 9 or 10?
Took a breath, looked to my right from that moment. Like, because like I got chills when I did that. And I normally when I tell the story and I take a breath to my right, like I still get the chills. And it's like far from perfect, when I'm able to keep myself in that mindset and stick to that pattern, things work out really well. When I get away from it, like it doesn't. So, but yeah, it was weird. It was immediately I knew that it was. Yeah.
So I've known you for a while, and one thing about your story, which you just shared a little bit with, the challenges going through a divorce, a broken home, the challenges of losing your mom at a very young age. A lot of people make excuses like it's, oh, I overcame that.
Yeah.
But you're not that kind of guy. You're not a despite it. You're a because guy.
Yeah.
So what in those experiences, that conflict since 3 years old up until your mom's passing, what have you taken from that? What wisdom have you, projected forward besides this moment, this epiphany that you've adopted every day that it's because of those experiences that you're a success and not despite it?
Yeah. What other choice do you have? Is like as simple as I can make it, right? What other choice do you have? You got 2 options. I mean, I could just simply say I'm optimistic, right? But why would you want errors to compound, especially when it's something that you can't control? Like I can't control my parents weren't the right ones for each other. And why would I want anything less of my life because of that? I honestly look at it and I got so much time with my dad. My dad's a doctor and he's on call all the time, but because my schedule is split 50-50, I feel like I actually got more from both of my parents with half time because I immediately became a limited resource. So if my dad, option to go to the mountains on a weekend, well, if I don't do it this weekend, I don't have a choice to do it next weekend. So we better do it this weekend. And I felt like that was kind of both of the parents. And it wasn't even like this matter of, like the Cold War where they're trying to have who's more fun.
Other.
No,
right.
It was just like, well, if we don't do it today, then I don't get to do it tomorrow, or I won't get to do it next week. And answer your question simply. It's like, why would I waste my time being sad if I have a choice? And I don't know if this is necessarily the answer, but I've actually had to give this story like 3 times in the last 2 weeks with different athletes that I have in my life. But there was one time life was really hard and my dad was like, hey, just go for a walk. I said, all right, let's go for a walk. He goes, I know you're having a hard time, because they were fighting again. It's like we're walking on this canal bank at late night under the stars and the moons. It was a nice night. I remember that much. And he goes, I have 3 metaphors for you I want you to think about. I said, all right. What's number 1? He goes, well, you ever seen a duck get wet? And I was like, yeah. He goes, what does the water do? I'm like, it just falls off, goes right back into the pond. He goes, yes. When something bad happens to you, I want you to think of that bad thing like water. And you're the duck. do you absorb it, or do you just let it run off you and get back into the lake? He goes, be the duck. I'm like, awesome. He goes, number 2, what does a duck look like in the pond? And I was like, a duck just kind of chills there. And they look super calm. He's like, yeah, they do above the water. What do they look like below the water? And I was like, those feet are going crazy. He's like, yes, they are. When life is hard, I want you to be a duck. You always look super calm. Don't let it affect you. But underneath, always try your hardest. Like, fight as hard as you can. I go, all right, cool. 3rd metaphor. Take that duck, put it in a stream, but one like up near Sequoia National Park where, there's rocks and it's going really fast. Okay, you're a duck in the pond, and then you're trying to get to the other side of the river. Sometimes you paddle as hard as you want. The river's going to push you the other way. Doesn't matter how hard you paddle. Understand that. Don't get upset if you don't get to where you're supposed to go. I said, all right, cool. And then I found out a 4th metaphor. Funny thing about ducks, they have wings. So if that river is really bad for you, just fly away.
Just fly away.
Just fly away. Yeah.
Have you told him that?
No, I haven't told him that, but I told another kid that who was having some problems.
So childhood had some difficulty there, but ultimately you fell in love with a sport, right? Yeah. You did. Yeah. Water polo. Mm-hmm. How did that happen?
It kind of just came around at the right time. I will talk about like just passion, right? So I grew up very passionate about basketball. Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, Dan Marley. Yeah, mid 90s basketball. I loved it, and I used to like practice the Hakeem shake, fake one way, hook shot the other. And I grew up to be like this, which I'm 6'4" and pretty thick, can't jump. And I was like, well, I'm not going to the NBA most likely. I mean, I look at it now and like, yeah, if I had committed myself fully, maybe, like you never know. Right. But I don't know, for whatever reason, like it just wasn't clicking for me at that time. And then I was doing rec swimming, and my swim coach, Bruce, who I still love to this day, don't see him that often, but I'm doing rec swimming, I'm doing backstroke, and he's like, Enloe, you swim like a moose, you should try water polo. I'm like, what's that? He's like, the yellow sport ball in the pool. I'm like, okay, when's practice? Tomorrow at this time. I'm like, all right, cool, I'll show up. Showed up, and he told me the time it ended. So when I showed up, they were leaving. They're like, oh, you want to play? Come tomorrow, we have a game. I'm like, okay. So I just showed up, and then as I started playing, I just realized like, hey, I can't jump in basketball, but in water polo, I can like get out here and hold it. So it's like, I think I'm kind of more akin to that, and I have a more natural build for the sport. But it took like 2 weeks before I told my mom I want to go to the Olympics, which is wild. But yeah, I just fell in love with it right off the bat, and that was my thing. And I can say that like love for the sport definitely came from a spot of not feeling like I was enough, which was kind of strange,
So how did water polo counterbalance that?
Because I felt like I was that like odd duck again. So another duck metaphor, but played basketball, typically last pick, played football. I was actually too fat to make peewees, so you could play up, but you didn't want to play with older kids. I wasn't like super athletic. I just like fat and slow, couldn't jump, like bad hand-eye coordination, all of those things. And I fell into the water, and I was good kind of like right off the bat. I could egg beater, I could do all these things. And that was just super random on this natural skills that I had about that.
So let's talk about your water polo career a little bit, because it's been significant.
Yeah.
Can you give me some of the highlights?
I mean, I would say the number 1 highlight is I met my wife through it. The number 2 highlight would be my high school coach, Vince. When I came in, we had 10 kids on JV, 8 kids on varsity. When I left, we had 45 kids on the team. Almost all of it was due to Vince. And Vince had a massive impact on my life with just showing how you're supposed to interact with young adults, in the way that he was like really kind of honest with himself. But as far as like the highlights that most people would say, right? The normal ones would be, I was on the U.S. national team very briefly, went to the World League Super Finals, played with Team USA, went to World University Games, played professionally Spain, Greece, Slovenia, Greece, Australia. I've coached in Australia, coached in Zimbabwe, ran clinics throughout the United States. I always had wanted to go to the Olympics. Notice I didn't say that. I didn't get the opportunity to do that. I'm kind of one of the, like, they call us the lost generation. So it was between Schroeder, Schroeder retiring and Udovicic coming in. Schroeder had an affinity for older players. Udovicic had an affinity for younger players, and just didn't necessarily get that shot that I had, he had dreamed of. And then I still look back and I'm like, I still could have done more, even with this ideology that I was telling you about, like always be pushing. When I got cut from the national team, I look back and I was like, what could have I done differently? And I think there were 3 things that I had isolated, like I could have done differently at the time. I only knew I was doing one of, like, I openly knew I was making the wrong decision. Would have made a difference. I don't know. But, a lot of people are really sore about not getting that opportunity. Like, yeah, it would have been great, but it's okay.
So let's talk about that. One thing you didn't mention is your college career, which you were very successful too.
Shit, I should have mentioned that too.
You were University of California, Irvine, a D1 school, and you played at a high level there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because some of the people listening to this are athletes.
Yeah.
And usually when you start out to be an athlete, you have that ultimate goal.
Yeah.
It's not just to be, hey, I want to make JV. It's like, I want to be an Olympian.
Yeah.
So as you progressed up the ranks and you had success, and then that ultimate peak was the Olympic team.
Yeah.
When that didn't manifest itself for you, how did you deal with that?
So I guess I'll answer the UCI question after how did I deal with not making the Olympics? Cried. That practice, I actually shared a ride with the team manager, which so it was a really awkward ride home, just like me bawling in the car asking like, why didn't I make the team? Levity, right? Like I was never supposed to make it anyways. I'm from Hanford. And the hard part is I would have signed up, I would have been there 12 years. I'd still be playing right now had I made that opportunity then. But yeah, like I'd said, dude, the coin didn't flip my way. What? I'm going to let it destroy the love of the sport? No. There's been so many moments where I look at it and I say, had I stopped then because I hadn't got what I believed was the primary goal or the primary benefit, had I stopped then, I would have missed out on so many other things. And they keep coming, which is crazy. There was one point in time I was in the backyard in Zimbabwe and I looked up at the stars and wait, these stars are different. Where's the North Star? I can't see it. And I heard this bird make a noise, like a wild, almost like a kookaburra, but different. And I'm like, that's not a bird I've ever heard. Like, oh, this was why I did it, to have this moment now. And then after that, it's, oh, wait, I met my wife. Oh, that's the reason why. Oh, wait, no, now I'm coaching 40 or 50, 16 to 18-year-old boys. Like, oh, this is the reason why. Like, no, I don't know why the reason is why, but I keep finding myself getting pushed back in. And so, how do you deal with it? You just go. Like God is God, and the world and life is pushing me in a way. And if that's the way the stream is telling me to go, okay, paddle that way. Why paddle against that current? So that was one. And then the question you probably want to ask now is like, so how did I get to UCI, right? From a high school perspective. So go back to that 2 weeks when I told my mom, like, I want to make the Olympics. She's like, all right, if you want to make the Olympics, what do you need to do? I'm like, oh, I don't know. So now we go into what we call reverse goal setting, right? She goes, well, the NBA. How do you make the Olympics for basketball? I'm like, oh, you play in the NBA. Okay, well, is there the NBA for water polo? I don't know. She goes, well, look it up. So I end up looking it up. And then the crazy side story of that is I looked at all the different professional teams. There was one in Spain, and I was like, I want to play for that team, which was one team in Tenerife in the Canary Islands. Long story short, like 7 years later, I meet a guy who played for that team, and that ends up being the first team that I play for. And then there was a moment where I had an offer from that team and an offer from a team in Montenegro, and the Montenegro team would, in theory, be the better team for like growing for the national team. And I just was like, there's no guarantee that Tenerife will be there next year. Because he's like, well, no, go to Montenegro, go to Tenerife next year. I'm like, no, there's no guarantee that it'll be here next year. And then what's crazy is the team folded after my full year there. So there could have not had been an opportunity to do it, and Tenerife was amazing. But go back into goal setting. So she said, okay, is there a professional league? There is. Okay, and in order to play in the NBA, what do you have to be? I'm like, you have to play in college. And she's like, you have to be like the best player in college, right? I said, yeah. For any team or the best team? Typically the best team. Okay, so if you have to be the best player on the best team, What characteristics do those people have? And then we just just kind of winged it. And I'm like, well, you got to be tall. Yeah. She's like, you got to be big, right? And I was like, yeah. I go, you got to be fast. She goes, yeah. And she goes, and you have to have GPA and SAT. You got to get into the school, right? I go, yeah. And she's like, and you're fat and you have acne. And I'm like, what? She goes, come on, Greg, be realistic. There's going to be some other guy, same height, same weight, same swim time, same GPA, same SAT. They look the part, you don't. Who would you take? And I'm just like gut check in my fat gut. I'm like, oh, you're right. But you're right. So from that moment, it was just like, okay, what characteristics can I control? I can't control the height, so I'm not going to worry about that. I can control the weight, right? And so good weight. I just had a weight set in my room. Pick it up, set it down. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know if I do this a bunch, I will get stronger. SAT, GPA, could have done more work on my SAT. My GPA, I still graduated like 7th in my class, 4.28 or something to that effect. And then my swim times were good enough. And then and then I ended up looking the part. Mm-hmm. So what's crazy is, we build these things up and then we have an idea of where it is that we want to go. I wanted to go to Stanford. I want to go to Stanford so bad. I wrote Stan in one swim goggle and Ford in the other. So as I swam, I'm like, there's my goal right in front of my face. And my mom had cancer, so we were going to Stanford University for her to get checked out. And she's like, hey, Irvine's playing Stanford. Why don't we meet the Stanford coach while we're up there? So we set up a meeting, talked to the coach, and the coach basically just said, look, if you can get in, you can try out. And like when he said that, my dreams were crushed. Like my vision tunneled. I couldn't hear anything. It sounded like the Peanuts, the whack, 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 whack when the teacher's talking. I just felt like I was doing backflips. And at the end of the meeting, my mom said, how do you feel? I'm like, Mom, my dreams are crushed. I want to go home. And she's like, no, tomorrow Irvine's playing Stanford. Why don't we go check out Irvine tomorrow? You can talk to the coach tomorrow. I was like, Mom, my dreams are crushed. I just want to go home. She's like, let me rephrase this. Tomorrow we're going to the game and tomorrow you're going to talk to the coach. I'm like, oh, okay, Mom. And we did some research. I found out that the previous quad, 5 Olympians had gone to UCI. So if my goal is to go to Olympics, like it's fair to say that's probably the school that I should have tried for. Didn't know it at the time. And at the end of the game, Coach Newland, who was this like legendary coach, 76 years old at the time, walking cane, weightlifting gloves, big floppy hat, knee braces, is like hobbling outside, leaving the Stanford pool deck. And my mom's like, go talk to him. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to. She's like, go. And I was like, okay. So I ran over, caught him right before the exit. And like, it's just crazy how like hesitation could have killed everything. Had I just waited another 4 seconds, like my whole life would have changed. And I caught him literally 15 feet before the exit, tapped him on the shoulder. He turns around. What's up, kid? Hi, Coach Newland. My name's Greg Enloe. I'm from Hanford High. I feel like your program would be a great fit for me. He's like, all right, kid. Do you know Troy Barnhart? And I'm like, yeah, he's the Olympian from our hometown. He refs my games. He's like, cool, kid. Pulls out this yellow notepad. He says, what's your name again? Greg Enloe. How tall are you? 6'4". How much do you weigh? 210. What's your GPA? What's your swim times? What's your swim times? What's your GPA? I told him. He writes each one of the stats down. He goes, all right, kid, you see this star? I said, yeah. Do you know what that means? No. That means you're in. Hunt will call you next week. Turns around, walks away. And I'm like, wait, hold on. What are you talking about? Yeah. And he goes, come on, kid. You're big. You're fast. You're smart. We can teach you the rest. And he just walked away. And what's crazy is like legitimately in order of the things my mom and had guessed 4 years ago was the exact order of the questions that he asked. And I had just one like luck, right? 6'4", 210. Like that helps. I'm huge. Not huge, but big enough. My swim times, that was, hard work as well as, genetics. GPA, SAT, that was me. And then he looked at me and he just saw a player. And then the last thing is just like being confident, being willing to go up and talk to him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like so many athletes and adults, everybody is just, they're afraid to ask. What if you just said, no, kid, we're full? Okay. But the answer was no, had I not gone up and talked to him anyways. But there's the chance that the answer was yes. Mm-hmm. And the answer was yes. Mm-hmm. And then the cool part is like, so the coach called me, the assistant coach called me and he's like, hey, so Newland said you want in. And because Hanford was a low socioeconomic school and me finishing 7th, I was actually already guaranteed into the school. Mm-hmm. So when he's like, well, we'll put you on the list. I'm like, no, I'm already in. Mm-hmm. And so it had just worked out really nicely. And I don't know, my mom and dad, they both were like, the answer is no until you ask. Like, make them go tell you no. And I don't know, I kind of do that now. So
That's good advice.
yeah.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So, and there's a lot more to your water polo career.
Yeah.
There is, and you're still in the water polo world. You still play at the masters level. You
Yeah.
travel the world coaching. But what I want to talk about is, what do you do now? What do you do as an occupation or occupations?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely occupations have many hats.
Yeah.
So my career job, I'm a financial advisor. I just left Prudential and went to Royal Alliance, and I'm working with a guy in Kingsburg. He's a CFP. And the natural question is like, why would you do that? Right? How did I go from water polo to that? And especially with my background in medicine, and as wild as it sounds and how different these points are, I just knew that I wanted to do something that I felt where I could help someone when they couldn't help themselves or they didn't know how to help themselves. And then try to do it in a field that needed good people. So my mom, being a nurse practitioner, her primary focus was actually AIDS in the mid-90s. So she was right there in that gnarly boom. And I saw people die when I was young. I remember candlelight vigils and just thinking, just seeing how much she was appreciated in that community. As well as that community was specifically kind of not treated very nicely at that point in time. And she was willing to go integrate fully into that community. And she was kind of outcasted by a significant portion of my hometown area, but she felt like those people needed her help. And so she was willing to do that. And that community, some of the best people that I still know to this day. So I saw my mom do that. I saw my dad do that. And then the appreciation that both of them received with being able to help people when they literally couldn't help themselves and help them through hard times. So as I was coaching for high school, I knew I didn't want to be a full-time coach my whole life. I thought it was something that I could do on the side and have a really good impact, because while I was running those clinics, I had found how many goals we score, how many games we win, relatively insignificant in my mind. Cause I always just say doesn't matter how many times you put the yellow ball in the white rectangle. No, it doesn't. In the end, no one's going to say you won so many games or you brought in, X amount of assets under management or anything like that. On your gravestone, it's going to be how many people's lives did you impact in a really positive way. And, I knew I could do that with assistant coaching or doing club on my own rather than just pure high school. And so I just started job shadowing parents while I was playing in Irvine and just asking different adults, what is it that they do? What are the pros? What are the cons? And that's something I suggest all kids to do, because growing up in Hanford, I thought you're either a farmer, a lawyer, or a doctor. That's it. I didn't even know commercial real estate existed. Didn't know financial advising was a thing. You don't know what you don't know. And I just started job shadowing people, and I ran into an advisor down in Irvine who was the dad of one of my players. And he told me what he did. And at first I'm like, so you just pick stocks? You just make people money? And he's like, yeah, that's kind of it. And I'm like, all right, cool. Thanks. I'm out of here. And he's like, wait, what do you mean? I'm like, no, it's cool. What you do, very important. But I just want something a little bit more than that. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, before we do that, we sit down and we talk about what's that family's goals and where are they at right now? And then how do you get to what that end goal is? And I just looked at him. I'm like, oh, so you do with families what I just had done with your daughter? End goal is to go play at a Division I school where you're at now, reverse engineer it, that whole same thing. Mm-hmm. What steps you need to take in order to get there? And he's like, yeah. I was like, cool. Do you have any books? And he's like, yeah, here, read this book. And I just stood outside of his office. I kind of looked up and I was like, all right, God, I'm going to read this book. If it sticks in my head, I think I'm going to do it. And if it doesn't, clearly not meant for this. Mm-hmm. And I just read the book and it made sense. And I just thought to myself, I'm like, before I had read the book, I'm like, I honestly don't know very much about this. And if I don't know anything about this, I know my friends know absolutely nothing about this. And so, yeah, I got into it. And as I did more reading and kind of investigating other families, you just find out a lot of people don't really know what they're doing. It's just crazy how many parallels there are in life. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to keep going and I hope I get to this spot. And what I had realized is, the one thing we can't get back is time. Well, money is the only thing that's close to a representation of time. Like, how many hours do you say you go to work, you say I put in X amount of hours and I get X amount of dollars for most people, right? So if you can make a correlation from hours to dollars, you can also make a correlation from dollars to hours. So like, let's say you wanted to do more podcasts. Well, one thing we could do is maybe people who can investigate and question people as well as you can. They have the time, but they don't have the dollars. But maybe you have the ability to go make dollars. So can you get more people to do the thing that you really want them to do and facilitate them with money, right? And so I just look at it, I'm like, if we can do that, if we can help people manage their money, which then gives them time to do the things that they really care about, like that's kind of where I'm at. And then you also look and you say, it goes back to like that divorce thing. There was a long time I'm like, why did my parents get divorced? That was a big question on my head for 10 years, a very good amount of my time. Like, why couldn't my parents get along? And then the research that I had done is like, the number one reason people get divorced is money issues. And so, when I got into it, I'm like, hey, if I can make people more comfortable, and that's helping relationships, and it's allowing people to do what they want and push their passions, like, why wouldn't I get involved in that? So yeah, it just like stars kind of aligned, and that's the reason why I feel like you can do a lot of good work. And it's so much outside of just like, okay, how much money do you end up with your 401k or your IRA? Like, So
what do you do exactly? What is it? What is a day in the life?
Oh, so day in the life of a financial advisor. A lot of talking to people. So like, first and foremost, you have to know your tools, right? You have to know what's an IRA, what's a 401k, what's a 403b, what's a 527. You have to know all of these numbers and things, and you have to know like who can manage those tools. And then once you know the platforms you can use and the tools you can use, all of that, then you just start talking to people and you ask them what they care about, and you try to find out what matters to them. And so it's I wish I could say that there was like from 8 to 9 I do this, and 9 to 10 I do this. It's it's as much of an art as it is a science, I guess. But number one thing is listening to what people care about, and then trying to help them get to a spot that they're comfortable, and then hopefully acting like a guiding light where you can either, one, get them to where they want to be, or two, like tell them that they aren't going to get there. And that
there's the bad news.
Yeah, there's the bad news. You might have to do something different. But the more people you come in contact with, kind of goes back to that metaphor of like, when I was in Hanford, I only knew that there were 3 or 4 occupations. Well, most people only think of like 1 or 2 types of retirement. And then the more people I've come in contact with, you start learning, hey, there's so many different ways to retire that you've probably never thought about. That may be something that you're interested in. So it just, it's crazy. So
you got that into that though, really to serve people.
Yeah.
And to help people.
Yeah.
And that's why you continue to coach.
Yeah. So it's weird. They're very synonymous, as strange as that sounds.
So what does your coaching gig right now look like?
Yeah. So coaching gig right now, it started off during COVID. Well, I had been doing clinics every time I'd come back from playing professional. I'd do clinics in the summer. So you get like, 3 hours with the team, or sometimes they'd like bring me in for multiple days and I'd help them that way. And what I had realized is like, yeah, you can teach a kid to pressure pass, you can teach them to shoot, you can teach them the game. But like in the end, it was that 15 minutes that I talked to them about like life ahead of time. And I'm like, you could learn these skills of the sport that may or may not last you for an extended amount of time. But if I can tell you my story, like how did I get to the national team? How do you succeed despite type of thing? That's way more valuable than anything else. I just look at it like I got from water polo, if we look at like the tangible, like the trips and the travel and all of that, right? Like being able to play professional, I'm in like the 1%. And then I look at it and I say, and then water polo gave me self-discipline, self-motivation, work ethic, friends, all of those things. My wife, right? All of those things. We'll take Electra out because she's on her own. Like she's more important than either of these buckets. But like if I had to choose one thing between Spain, Greece, Slovenia, Australia, Africa, all of those, and then I look at the skills that everybody gets regardless, waking up early, pushing yourself hard on a swim set, pushing yourself in a leg set. One person's like punching you in the game and you're staying focused on what's the really important thing. As the coach is talking, are you able to focus? Like all of those, that is regardless of how big or small or fast or slow you are. By showing up to practice and working hard, everyone has access to that. And as someone who's like this pile, the trips and all that is huge, I recognize like I would put that in the trash. If I could only keep one, this would go in the trash immediately, and I would keep all of these. Because, dude, I was one broken bone away from never getting to do any of this. And, you know, to know that as much as we would love to say, I do X amount of work and I get this result, like we don't. Nothing is guaranteed in life. My foot in the door came from Griffin Lerman, who's one of my best friends. Love the guy. He went to the Pan American Games. He got kicked in the face, broken orbital socket. They need another defender. Hi, here I am. So the next tournament, World League Superfinals, I get to go because Griffin had broke his face. What if Griffin had never broke his face, right? Would I have been able to get these other things? No. So our work and our reward is not directly correlated. And then you'll find other people who do nothing and then get the whole reward. And you can say, oh, that's so unfair. No, it's not. It's not.
Why isn't it unfair?
Why is it not unfair?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to the beginning because what does it benefit me to say that it's unfair? So what, I'm not going to work? Because a majority of the time, the work will increase your odds of getting the reward, obviously. But it's like, yeah, sometimes that's just not the way that the coin flips for us. So what are you going to do? Stop flipping the coin?
Sure.
Like, just go for it. Yeah.
That's good advice. So how do you bring God into those two occupations? How does that manifest? How does your faith in God manifest itself when you're talking 401ks or you're teaching how to swim or throw a ball properly?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
So the water polo side, much easier. Obviously, when you're in contact, like I'm reading a John Wooden book right now, but when you're in contact with an athlete, 2, 3, 4 times a week, they see how you act. And that's, I'll go back to, so how does God work in financial advising? I'm going to flip that on its own head. And I'm going to say, how did God work into my financial advising? God worked through financial advising back into my life, which is crazy. So there's a church in Kingsburg. The men's group is phenomenal. It's every Wednesday morning, right? And I would have wanted to go there, but Kingsburg is a 30-minute drive away from my hometown. The CFP that I'm working with, he lives in Kingsburg. So when I switch firms, he's like, so when are you going to come? Like, because we can work remote. So, well, what day do we want to come in so that we can see each other and do our weekly meetings? Oh, Wednesday. Right?
Yeah.
So God, I feel like I thought going to Kingsburg and working Royal Alliance and Lap Wealth, I thought that was something that I had planned. And then I quickly realized, nope, God had that plan because God wanted me to go to men's group. Right. And so, hopefully God blesses the financial advising and that career path. I hope he does. If he doesn't, he'll bless somewhere else. Like we have very little control of what God decides that he's calling us for, and having the being comfortable enough to recognize that, I think, is really important. But that's how God worked financial advising back into me, which is phenomenal. But, how does he work into that is, let's be honest, most financial advisors are and life insurance agents viewed very poorly. And when I told my grandma that's what I was doing, she was washing her dishes and she stopped and she's like, I've never been so disappointed in you. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, all financial advisors and insurance people are scumbags. And I'm like, well, grandma, I'm the one who's not, Yeah. And so it's interesting. So how does it work into it? Everything we do, whether it be coaching, financial advising, picking up coffee, whatever, dude, we always have an opportunity to be a phenomenal example. And this men's group that I've been going to recently, that's one of the things that they've been talking about. So, one of the statistics that I found, or that they found and they taught us, is who's your number one person to show you, what's the number one person that will show, will you be a Christian or will you not? Your parents, right? Your parents. Yeah. And then for most young adults who've done sports, who's the closest thing to a dad or mom? A coach, right? A teacher, something to that effect. So it's how are you engaging every day. And you can do that as a financial advisor. You can do that as a coach. You can do that as pick. How do you do? How do you do life?
And that's why you do what you do.
Yeah. I mean, do what I do. Look, yesterday I was not a good example. I talked to the referee in a way that I probably shouldn't have. And I felt bad at the end of the game, and I had to tell my kids, I'm like, look, in the end, I'm your coach. I need to be worried about you. But the most important thing I need to do is be a good example. I don't feel good about myself right now because of what I had said. Like I got down on the guy. I didn't ask him, what is his preset? I didn't ask him, is he having a good day? I just went like, I know I need to protect my kids. And in this attempt of protecting my kids, I did even more harm. Right. And so then what do? Like, man, the coin flipped the wrong way. So what do? Guys, look, part of being an adult and being a good person is we're fallible. Like, as much as you make mistakes, y'all know I make mistakes, and hands up, I made the number one mistake today. I messed up. Like, I didn't talk to that guy the way that I should have. So, you can be a Christian regardless of what your job is, regardless of where you are in life. Like, maybe you're the leader, maybe you're the follower. Maybe as a leader on a team, you need to make sure that you're talking about Christ and living a Christly example. Maybe as a follower, you need to do that. There's mentor and there's reverse mentor. And you can do it in every single way. Maybe your coach speaks to you in a bad way. You just smile and you do what he asks. And then when there's that moment where he's asking you, how did you never crack? How did you never get mad at me? There's your opportunity. There's a coach in my life who everybody deemed was very difficult, and it's not anyone that anyone would know. So, it's not Newland. Newland was very tough. I love the man, but he was very tough. And then someone later, years later, said, that coach was significantly different after you guys left. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And this person was like, there's a chance that it was because of the way you interacted back with him. He was very difficult, but all we did was always smile. Yes, coach, let's go do that. And I think that we perhaps had broken some preconceptions that he had of what a typical high school kid was, and just tried to act more mature and be more respectful. And, I don't know if it's true. I haven't talked to him about it, but that's an example where, being a good example can go from down up or up, down, and down up.
So let me ask you, getting near the end here, what kind of advice would you give yourself as that young person that has this amazing dream, these goals? What advice would you give yourself earlier? Not that you haven't accomplished what you set out to do, because you have, but what I mean is, what would be some of the wisdom you've impart to a younger version of yourself?
First off, I would say I did not accomplish what I set out to do, and that's okay. Right. It's been a whole different slew of results, which I'm happy with. Some I'm not, most I am. And in the end, I can't control the stuff that happened. So just what choices do you have other than to be happy and try your best? So the thing that I would kind of impart on everyone or suggest to all kids, or your question was myself, I would just say just do it. Do whatever you think is most important. Have a backbone of people or faith or theological ideas that you can always rely on. So when the time gets tough and you're not necessarily perfectly prepared for that specific example, you still have certain inputs that you can rely upon to decide your output. I would just, say that, have a mentor, have my dad. I was actually mad when he became a Christian. I'm like, you can't, you didn't change anything. You're just saying now you're doing it just because of God. But my dad was always a good guy, right? And so he always led with that. And same thing with my mom. My mom was a lover, best friend, worst enemy, but she always passion, right? So I get the passion from my mom and I get the consistency from my dad. Hey, that's a pretty good combo, right? You don't have to take the the bad from everybody. You can look and say like, you know, Mike, I met you and I'm like, dude, this guy's on fire for God and you've been an impact on my life, and you never know how you're going to impact someone. So, I mean, there's just so much to impart, but I guess like one, know what you want to be remembered for, and then try to do that every day. Your name will not be remembered. Like Winston Churchill, Abraham Lincoln, you know, that he's not known in certain parts of the world. And let's go 100, 200 years down. They won't be known, but can they be felt? You know, there's certain aspects of my life that I try to exude my mom, and people will never know that that's my mom. But if they look at me and they say, yeah, I want to live with passion. Well, you just, my mom's a little bit further down, right? Or I want to live with consistency and love. Like, yeah, okay, cool. You got my dad, which is great. Yeah, just have a mentor and sit down and think about what it is that you want. There was one New Year's, and then we'll probably be done, I'm sorry, but there was one New Year's where I was in Arizona and I just like felt down, and I just like, hey, the New Year's is about to start. What's important to you? And I just sat down and I just started writing things out, and I ended up with like these 5 tenets, if you would. And one was improve continually via discipline, hard work, and thoughtfulness. 2, serve the people around me. 3, empower others to dream big, make a plan, and fearlessly try. 4, exude the positive potential and spirit humanity brings. And 5, appreciate the natural world and gifts of life God created. And this was like a 30, 45-minute project. Just sat down, quiet. And like anytime things get hard, I just ask myself, am I doing this? And the times like, you know, like yesterday, I didn't feel good about myself. Why didn't I feel good about myself? Was I exuding the positive potential and spirit humanity holds? No, I was not. I was being mean. And if all I do is, at the end of the day, we could lose a game, the ref could be terrible, and if I was positive and nice to him, like, that was a good day. Good day for him, good day for me, good day for the kids, good day for the fans. Like, I get outside of these things, it's bad, right? And same thing with the Bible. Like, if you want to know what to do, dig into it. It's going to tell you what's going to make you feel like you're doing the right thing and what's going to make you feel like you're doing the wrong thing. It's not what makes you feel good and what makes you feel bad. What makes you feel like you're doing the right thing and what makes you feel like you're doing the wrong thing. And then have somebody who can gut check you sometime. Because I know that if you caught me doing something I wouldn't like, you'd come up and, Greg, hey, you can do better.
So, Greg, we've had some time together, and you've really opened up and shared a lot. Before we conclude, can you go over your tenets one more time?
Yeah, for sure. So the number 1 tenet is improve continually via discipline, hard work, and thoughtfulness. Number 2, serve the people around me. Number 3, empower others to dream big, make a plan, and fearlessly try. Number 4, exude the positive potential and spirit humanity holds. And 5, appreciate the natural world and gifts of life God created.
Thank you for sharing that. That's something we should all do.
I appreciate
it. So thank you for coming to the drop. I'm sorry. We have a little tradition here. Our metaphor through the drop is like collecting pennies in a jar, and pennies represent wisdom. So metaphorically, can you drop a penny in the jar for sharing your wisdom? Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Mike.
Love you.
Love you too.